This is the last one you did? Is that correct? Have you done that one? Okay, so I think that one, oh, availability, it's hidden from students. There you go. That's probably why you haven't seen it yet. So that one's gonna come up today. Yep. So let's see what it looks like now. Week 2, Thursday. Yeah, so this is gonna be in there. I don't know why the one that I just. Let's look at that again. No, it's gone. Was it in Tuesday? Oh, yeah. There we go. We'll put it in the right day. All right, so now you should be able to see it. So you can look at it later, but this is one we're going to do now, and then we're also going to do this one, which is the other one that I've loaded. So 2.1 and 2.2, I'm numbering them by the week and then the lab during that week. So second week, first lab is that one. Second week, second lab is this one. Okay, so you have a couple to get done. This one is metric. Okay, so we need to talk about that. Before I do that, do you have like any general questions about AutoCAD? Like when you were drawing, like how do you do this kind of thing, or how do you do that? Yeah, go. The angles. So if you're going to draw a line, so I just, here we go. Typed in line, L enter, right? Then I start it, move it around. See what's highlighted? That's what it's asking for first. So if I go 8, enter, it's going to just put it down at that angle. I don't get the choice of putting an angle, right? So if I go line, enter, and I go 8 and then tab, it'll tab over to that angular piece, tab. You can do that, but it's easier just to tab to it and put, if you know the number. If you know the number, it's easier to tab and then just put it in, because I can just put in 10 and it'll go down to 10.
I know it's not like when I looked at the first tab and I got to if I have like a letter or something that wasn't numbered.
So if I go 10 tab, oh, were you trying to put the degree symbol in? No. I'm going to put in -10, and it should go -10 degrees. Yeah, I don't know. If you get on one and can make it happen, then I can figure that one out. It should just take a number, like that should just go right away. Good question, though. Yeah.
I couldn't find it in the book. I had an attachment.
So I think we did one out of the book, but I'd have to look at Tuesdays to see. Here, let's do this. New share. There. Yeah, this was out of the book.
Yeah, I don't know if that's different, like either.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have my book with me, so I can't verify, but
Last week's was definitely in there. I don't know.
Not there. I'm sure it's there. Chapter 2 is long. Yeah, that was the thing, and the chapter 2. Those are the- Yeah. No, those are the.
So.
Oh, then I'd probably just pull those out of my. Yeah. Yeah, you're right, I did. I remember that now. There was only 2, and I'm like, that's not. So I just threw those.
Okay.
So, yeah. sure they were in there. But
No, this is a different book. This is a new book, so they're probably not in there. So,
I want to make sure I wasn't crazy.
yeah, that's probably different. Because I did coordinates on you. All right. What else? Anything else with what we've done so far that you got stuck on or couldn't do?
Well, I had a problem the first time. Going to angles, I get all the way through and then my last 2 points would match
It
up.
wouldn't match up.
I tried it like 2 different, so then I just did like the main box first, and I go, yeah, I know all that.
Trimmed it up type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just pulled them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause like.
Like if you have the object snaps going, these critters right down here, then they will grab ends of lines for you. Like,
those are.
unless that's indicating there's an error somewhere, right? If it didn't close up and it should have, then you might have a number wrong.
Well, I noticed that I said I was just getting the angle by just barely moving my mouse.
Right.
Could barely move it, and it would still be on the same.
Yep.
angle.
Yep.
What is all the extra, like, when I save, I have like all these, for like, the pay for my.
Oh, yeah. Good question. Yeah, so you'll have every time. So right now I haven't done a save, right? It says drawing 1. So if I give myself a drawing of some kind, and then I go save as, and I go to the menu to do it. There's quick buttons for it, but go save as, identify where you want to save it to. I'm going to go to the desktop and you give it a name. I'll just call it lab practice, right? And I do a save. That's the first save, that's on the disk. Now, when I just do another save, like if I just hit the save button, that'll generate a BAK file. That's a backup file. Okay, so then as you go along, you'll have historically, I'll have this saved, right? Then I'll do work and I'll hit save. It'll save this as the backup file and the new file will become the DWG file. If that new file were to become corrupt for some reason, like, and this happens, I mean, it's just weird stuff, but somehow that becomes a corrupt file or your computer crashes and you don't get it saved, that backup file will be there for you. So there's only going to be one back file. So each time you do a save, it'll erase the back with the new version. Yeah. So then if you ever want to use the back file, you just go in and change the file extension to DWG and it'll open it like a drawing. So it's just trying to save stuff for you as you move along. Yeah. And a plop file is if you go to print and then the print doesn't take place, sometimes it'll make a plop file. Just absolutely get rid of them. Yeah. Don't need them. Yep. Great question. Very good. There was something else I was going to talk about with saving, but I think we got it. Yeah. Sometimes when you do draw, things will like look different all of a sudden. Like that's the normal look when you draw a line. You get the length and the angle. But that's called a dynamic input, and that is also down here. So I believe it's that one right there. So if at some point it doesn't look right, it can be because you've loaded it on your laptop or you've come in here and loaded a file, or whoever was before you in here didn't have them on for some reason. You can turn them on and off down here. So this I think is called snapping reference lines. That's not it. Yeah, I don't see dynamics, so maybe you can't turn that one off anymore. This is tracking, so like the 0 line, see, doesn't show up, and the vertical line doesn't show up. So that's this button. See how now it shows up, vertical line? And you can change that. You can get it to show up every 15 degrees. So now every 15 degrees, that line shows up. See how it jumps and the green line appears? And that's just so you can grab angles easy. So all of that kind of display control, like the grid, I hate the grid, so I turn it off. That's down here. All those kind of display controls are right down here if something isn't acting normal. All right, so. Yeah, well, that's what we're doing.
Want to go back and look at it. Like what I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, so the easy way to get properties, and you'll get way more properties than you want, is to click on it. So if you're not in a command, we get grips. And then if you right click on any grip, so I go on the grip and I right click, properties. That'll bring up now it's up. Anything that gets chosen out here will be thrown into here, and it'll show you the properties of that object. It's extensive, right? You're going to get a lot of stuff that you really don't want, but mixed in here will be things like you do want, like radius. If it was supposed to be 6, I missed it, right? 6.0654. Okay. And it does tell you what it is, and this will become important later. Circle. So if I have a collection of, see, now that it's open, it'll stay open. So some people like it, some people don't. I don't like it. I get rid of it because I don't use properties that much. But if you want it, it's there. But if I have a mix of things like lines and circles, and then I choose them all, it'll try and give me the properties of everything, right? And up here, it says it's giving me the properties of all 3. And I can say, okay, I don't want that. I just want the line. So now it's just giving me the properties of the line. So that can be kind of handy. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So the other thing you can do, and this is going to be helpful if you happen to be at the right zoom and the right size factor, but you can throw a dimension down. So dimensioning is here. It's called annotation, right? And the basic dimensions that we kind of understand are these under linear. So a lot of commands will have a triangle next to it. That's that little triangle, right? That means you can pull it down and get a lot more. So if I do just a regular linear dimension from here to here, it's going to control it X and Y, right? So the other one is the aligned dimension, and that will be aligned with the object. So I can throw a dimension down pretty quick, and most times you're going to have to zoom in to see it, right? Because we don't have that whole scaling thing figured out yet. But it'll give you a number, like that can be helpful just to throw it down. And then, of course, get rid of it because we're not dimensioning yet. But you can do that like on your circle and then go, yeah, that's wrong, right? So that can help kind of check your drawing as you go through it for now. So a couple different ways, properties and dimensioning works good. Good questions. More? Any more? I think you can dock this. So you move it around by this bar over here. See, it has a bar. So I can grab it, move it around. And if I move it far enough, you'll see it kind of changes phase. Now it's going to dock it. So all toolbars are that way. Be careful because you can lose them too. Like this whole upper toolbar is that way. And then you can kind of slide it in and out. It used to be able to. Yeah, you can. You just can't hit it. There it is. Make it smaller, which is less effective, I know, but I like a big working area. So I don't usually dock things like that. But if you want to undock it, you just grab it in this bar area, pull it out, and then you can kill it. Okay. Get it back. Just grip anything, right click on a grip, and it's down here. Quick properties is going to be just a condensed version of the big properties. But properties is super valuable. We'll use that a lot, especially when we get into working with layers, working with colors, and sorting objects, which we want to do. That information's right here because it'll get confusing, like what layer is this stuff on, right? Because you're going to want to turn some layers off, turn some layers on, hide layers from customers, turn layers on for other people that you're working with, that kind of stuff. So it's super handy. And you can make changes in here. Like I can go in and click and change the line type scale. If a hidden line's not showing up and I want a hidden line to show up, then I can just click right there and change the scale of it and it'll change it. All right. Good. This one's, like I said, it's metric. So I want to make sure that you know how to go back and forth between metric and US. It's a real bummer when you get it half done in the US system, and then you realize, oh crap, this is metric. Because that's a factor of 25 essentially, right? 25.4 millimeters per inch. So there's ways to fix it. Like we can scale things. You can change it to the metric system, which it will not change objects. Like it's not that smart to like switch it to the metric system and then change its size. But you can switch to the metric system and then scale something and then make it and it'll be spot on good as long as you use a good factor. So, all right, go ahead. Question? No? All right. So when you click on new drawing in here, it'll come up with template. It should do that at your home too. The dialog box might look a little different because this is a network dialog box because we're networked here. AutoCAD doesn't sit here. It sits on some server, down the spine somewhere. So these are the available templates that come with AutoCAD. ACAD is just the generic, basic, out-of-the-box AutoCAD that's thinking inches when you draw it in inches, okay? ACAD, ISO are metric versions. There's the metric version. Now, here's some that have actually plot styles, and that's just, when we print, you can use a plot style. If you have like a company plot style, right? You can use that when you print. We're not going to do that. We're just going to use ISO or ACAD in the beginning. So if I go with ISO as my template, I'm essentially telling the software, I'm going to think in millimeters, okay? It's not going to look any different on screen. Like everything looks exactly the same. There's no indication that it's millimeters other than when I go line and enter and I put in 1, it's that small. See it? Yeah. That's because I didn't touch the zoom, right? If I would have done this first. Yeah, if I'd have done this first and then done 1, I would have said, oh, that looks like inches. Like, no, it's millimeters. You just can't tell. What is this, advertising? That's cool. Not really cool. So zoom factor makes a big difference, right? That's 1 millimeter, but right there, it kind of looks like inches. So just want to make sure you know what you're going to work in. Now it's just regular drawing. Like if I go line and I go up and I go 10, that's 10 millimeters, right? That's 10 of those little guys. So it does fine. It figures it out. There's no really other indication that it's switched itself over. So I always do a save. And when I use the file name, which is my last name, then I put a bunch of stuff into mine like dates and stuff, but then I'll write metric in the file name too. So I know when I open that in the future, I'm like, oh, that's right. This is a metric version. Okay. So going back and forth, that's really the only difference. There used to be, not there. There used to be like an indicator down here, but I don't see it anymore. Yeah. No, I think I'm thinking SolidWorks. Have we haven't popped into layout at all? This thing right down in here? Okay. So there are 2 spaces that we work in AutoCAD, and I'll just show you because this is another way to verify you're drawing in the right scale, metric, or US. Layout is kind of a paper version. They call it paper space. It's where you get to see the paper, like, oh, there's the paper that's actually going to come out of there, and it's what it's going to look like on the paper, right? This is a viewport. So however you want to think of that viewport, that's fine. The way that we've explained it in class before, I need to get zoomed back a little, is it's allowing you to kind of look through the paper at the model. So I had 2 lines in model space. I have 2 lines. This is the model. Even though it's 2-dimensional, it could be 3-dimensional. We're just not there yet, right? That's the model. Okay. When we go into paper space, we can use a viewport to look at the model. That makes sense somewhat? Okay. So in here, we can actually edit the model by going into model space while we're kind of in the view of paper space. So if I click in here, I am now in model space, and it says that right here, meaning I could, I can make changes in this view. I don't recommend drawing in this view. When you zoom here, you zoom the model. It's like, oh, that's kind of weird. But if I click out here anywhere, then I go back to paper space. And now when I zoom the paper and I don't touch the model. Okay. So this is AutoCAD's way of dealing with trying to figure out scale, because here in model space, we draw 1-to-1, right? If I'm going to draw an airplane or whatever I'm going to draw, and it is, 40,000 millimeters. That's a big line, just so you know, right? Or maybe that was 400,000. I don't even know what I put in. It's huge. So now when I go to layout, that thing is way off the screen, right? But I can pop into model here. I can try to scroll back. I did a really big line, I know. I'm just scrolling back. Oh, there it is. So I can actually get it onto the paper, right? By scaling this thing down small enough. I can't see the geometry that's right over here. There's some geometry there. But that's what we do in paper space, is we take this model that could be really huge or really small, and we come into here and we we can zoom it and make it fit. And then I can go to paper space and I can hit print, right? And my model will come out on a piece of paper at a specific scale, because I'll use scales to figure that out, okay? But what you can do, I'm gonna erase all this. I'm gonna zoom all, which hopefully, puts 0, 0 right back down here. I can draw a line, and I'll make it 10 millimeters. So that's an indicator that I'm drawing a very small thing, right? And I am in millimeters because that's really small. 10 inches would fill the paper. So it's definitely 10 millimeters. So you can always go to here and try and figure out did I draw it in the metric system, or did I draw it in the US system, by popping back and forth. All right, cool. Zoom, enter, all enter, gives me it back. All right, I think what we're going to talk about next, oops, I got to do it this way. Yeah, so to get back the default screen, which is a little different on most machines, but most of the time it's about 11 inches by 8 inches. Sometimes it's 17 by 12, the default screen, right? Z is zoom. Uh-oh, gotta click. Z is zoom. And then one of the options is Alt. So I just do A. And that resets it all. Okay. This is AutoCAD's little coordinate system, and that's referring to 0, 0. So AutoCAD does work off the Cartesian coordinate system, X, Y, right? X is positive to the right, Y is vertically up. And actually, when, AutoCAD version 1, that's how we had to draw, was by this stupid coordinate system. Talk about a pain. It's horrible. But you can draw by coordinates. So if I go line, the first thing it gives me before I even touch, for the start point, is the coordinates, X and Y, right there. And as I move around, I can see the coordinates of my screen. And as I get closer to here, that should become 0, 0 if I could get right to it, right? No, that's automatic. I just haven't picked a button. Does yours not turn on? So if I go line and enter, I get it automatically. You don't get it? Then that's one of these dynamic inputs. Where is it? That's a snaps. It's not that one. Wait, that might have done it. Oh, nope, I still got it. Yeah, it's called, I think it's called dynamic input. And I thought it was down here. It's not that one. Isometric.
Oh, I figured it out. I have it. It should have the bottom.
Oh, in your screen. Okay. Yeah, the display will be different. So back to line enter, there's the coordinates. So if I just put coordinates in, it's actually what we call absolute coordinates, and it's going to refer to this. So if I go 0, and you can use the comma, so comma just moves it over to the next one. So I went 0, 0, which would be X is 0, Y is 0, right? And I hit enter, it's going to hook up to it, right? So then I could draw this way, believe it or not. I'm not a big fan of this, but you can then input coordinates to your next point. So I could go, I'm going to go 10 in the X, comma, 0 in the Y. So it went 10 in the X, 0 in the Y. I mean, it's a brain tease to keep track of this because this is the absolute system. If I wanted to go up 10, it would be, I want to stay 10 in the X. So I'd go 10. And now I want to go up 10. So it's always referring to, that didn't do it. That went absolute. I'm going to undo that. Maybe it fixed it. Oh, now it's doing it. Nope. This is how we used to do it. Yeah, but it's not acting normal. It's doing what we call relative coordinates. So it's going relative to my last point. So it used to do it to here, but I'm okay with it not doing that. Relative coordinates would be relative to here. Right? Relative to your last point, it's going to go this new coordinate. Yeah, so let me check that again. I'll go 10, comma, and I'll go back to 0. Yeah, so it's going relative to this. So when 10 in the X, none in the Y. A pain, much easier just to aim, shoot, and use angles, like way easier. But sometimes, like if a drawing, some of these drawings, they'll give you like the coordinates. It's like, oh God, now I got to use coordinates or else I have to do trigonometry to figure the angle out. So know that you can use coordinates. They are handy at times. All right. We're going to do this one. Oh, I wanted to talk about one other thing, because you're going to start making orthographic drawings. And if you've not seen orthographic drawings before, we should talk about that. And it left. That's sad. I didn't close it. All right, I brought it back. We'll make it bigger. All right, so the glass box concept, if you have me in the other class, you've kind of worked with this a little bit. But you take an object, you put it in a glass box, and then you can look at that object from different directions, right? Those are referred to as views, the views of the object. The primary views are front, top, and right side. Those are the primary views of a standard object. So, for example, this one, we are going to refer to this, the arrow, as the front view. So then the two other sides become developed off of the front. So if this is the front, then obviously that's the top, and then this is the right side view. Okay. And it's as if we look at it exactly from that angle. We don't see any perspective. This is perspective, right? Three-dimensionally, we see the depth, we see kind of many sides at once, right? That's called a perspective or an isometric drawing. We don't draw that way, and we don't dimension these kind of drawings typically. We draw that way. We draw one view, dimension that view, because everything is true size and true shape when you draw like that. This is not true size because it's all skewed off at some weird angle, right? We're not looking at it perfectly. So what we have to be able to do is pick these sides out and then draw them. And we want to keep them in projection, which means the bottom surface lines up with the bottom surface of the next view. The right edge lines up with the right edge of the next view, right? So all of this information projects up, like the whole projects up to those hidden lines. The top of this arc projects over and creates the top of the right side view. So everything projects to each other. They put these fold lines in and these projection lines in just so we could see it, but we don't typically draw those. Okay, it's just these three views in space that are lined up. It's called the glass box. Like you just pull geometry away from the object onto a flat surface. That's what creates the view. So this is the kind of drawing we want to practice when we do AutoCAD. Okay, and I'm going to have you do first just the front view, right? You're just going to create the front view from this object. And then at some point, we'll start to create top views and side views also on that piece of paper. We can just build on this because AutoCAD's so easy to tweak as we go along. That's exactly right. Yep. Yep. Just like that. Yeah. So these three are called the primary views. These are also views and they can be used. It's not that common. Usually three views, we can define something unless it's complicated, and then we'll need other kinds of views to do it, right? But here's the whole true size and shape thing. Like here, when we look straight at this object, that is true length. But here, as we look straight at this surface, that's not true length, right? We'll draw it this big, but it's really long and away from me. But then in the other view, it is true size, right? So that's why three views, usually you can get all the true lengths out of the geometry. So it often will take multiple views. Sometimes you will never get it. So like at the bottom, this line in this view, not true length because it's going away, right? This, if I wanted to draw this one over here, again, not true length because this, it doesn't lay on one of the primary views, right? So then we would need some other method of defining that. And we have, you know, another 20 different kinds of drawings we can do to pick that out of there. We can do a section, which means we just slice through the object. And if we slice through it just right, we will get the true length of that line. So that's kind of our goal, is to pull out these top views, side views, right? And try and get the geometry correct. If we can't see a geometry, it becomes a hidden line. And that's just dashes, right? Here we see everything. We don't have any dashes. But here is some hidden lines. That means in this view, I can't see the whole. Right? It's hidden from me. So these hidden lines will start to pop up, and that becomes the puzzle. The bottom view can't see anything from the bottom, right? Everything's on the top. So it's all this geometry is hidden. So it's a bit of a brain game to get this figured out. What's visible, what's not. If it's not visible, we make a hidden line. I think that's enough of that. I want to show you how to make, how to make a, where'd AutoCAD go? There it is. Hidden line, right? So if I have here, I'll just start on my little I'll do a little drawing for you. Sometimes it's nice to watch somebody else draw, just see what they do. So you can follow along. I won't do this very long because it doesn't smell. I can do it for you drawing for an hour and you watching. But sometimes it's handy to just watch somebody else draw. I don't remember if I'm in a metric system or not. So I'm just going to start a new drawing. Looks like I was, but that's all right. Get rid of this grid. With AutoCAD, literally you can start anywhere. You don't even have to think about where you start. I haven't touched the zoom button, so I know I'm pretty close to 0, 0. It's right here. That's all you really need. I'm going to work on the front view of this thing. I just start in the lower left when I have a really boxy looking thing like this, right? And then I just start to try and dig out dimensions. I possibly would do the whole 113 across the bottom. See the 113 dimension? That's all the way across. I might do that because I just don't see the bottom shoulder length across there. So some of these are symmetrical, some of them are not. It's hard to tell. And some will have dimensional problems. So I can see 39 on the other side. Everyone see the 39 on the right side, looking at the bottom there. Yeah, ISO for sure. This is metric. So I'm just going to go with, I'll go with the 113 across the bottom. Oops, I don't have my angle control on. Now I do. So I just make sure I'm on that green line. And that'll kind of set up my zoom. So that's 113 right there. So yeah, I was out of ways. So that'll help me, kind of control this thing. You can draw over the top of other lines. So I'm going to shoot this back at 39 and then I can go up. So I went 113 over, and then I went from here back 39. Now I'm going to go up. How far up is it? 17. So I'm just aiming, making sure I have that green line going, and I'm just aiming and shooting. So I went 17 up. And then, do I know how far over it is? 35. And then I'll shoot down. And when I shoot, like this aim and shoot technique, I don't get anywhere near the line. See, I pull my cursor way down, or I leave it short. But don't get to the line, or some object snap might want to take over. Which, if I did go like my 17, it's going to probably defer to the object snap, which is doing an intersection type of thing, right? So I just don't get anywhere near it. I just pull it past and go 17, and clearly that should hook up. So at this point, I just hit escape. And I might do a trim and get rid of that. So when you use construction lines, deal with them right away, or you'll forget to deal with them. And it'll just be left there, and the drawing will get so complicated, you just won't notice that the damn construction line is still there, closing something off that shouldn't be, right? So then I would come over here maybe and hook up. It looks like it's 13 tall and 25 in, so I can get some progress here. So I'll go line, enter it, and then I'll use my object snap to hook up. And I want to make sure that appears. If that's not appearing, then I need to make it appear by turning it on down here. But it is, and I can nail it, right? So then I'm going to go up 13. Yep. And I'm going to shoot left. 25. Yeah, 25. And then it looks like all the way to the top is 64, but I'm not coming from the bottom, right? So I don't see a dimension from the shoulder height that I'm at. Kind of want to go all the way to the top. So I could do the math, 64 minus the 13, yeah. So 64, 54, 51. I would do that on a calculator. I would not do that in my head, but I just did. And then same kind of thing, I'd go all the way across, or I could just do the 19. I'll do the 19. Whoops. All right. And then how far down? Maybe I don't know. 17, 13. Again, I could do math to figure it out. I could also just disconnect, go from down here up 13, and then go across just a ways. Now I'm just doing construction line technique and then bring this down to it like that. And then I trim and I could get rid of this and this. So I jumped up, went across, gave myself kind of a line to hit, brought it down and went for it. So like use those construction techniques if that works for you. Right? And I know this one was supposed to go across 25 and I just drew it long. So I might like delete that, get it out of there, and then just hook a line up and go across to 25. Good. I mean, that's pretty basic. If I wanted to start the right side view, then I would just run a line across from the bottom over, give myself some space, and then I could think about the right side view. So that width is what, 32? And then I would get rid of this thing. So now I have the right side view started. I've drawn the 32 across the bottom, and I would start up, right? And we know it's up how far? 13. But it's also up to this shoulder, correct? From the right side view, I see this shoulder. So AutoCAD has the capability of dragging points. So I haven't put my second point in on this line, but I can show it this corner, and then I can drag that corner across, if I'm careful with my mouse, until I have a horizontal line drag across and I have my vertical line active. That makes sense? I'll do it again. Line, I hook up to it, and then I'll do it up here. I show it, you don't click anything, you just show it a corner, and then you try to drag it, keeping your mouse horizontal. If you get too far off, it'll lose that. But if you come back, it'll find it. And then at some point it won't find it. Like it'll just be like, I don't know what you want to do. I give up. But there I found it again. I just drag carefully until I get horizontal and vertical. That point is exactly the same height as that top. Okay. So I could do that here, which is handy. I don't have to do any input. I can just start dragging points around. Cool. All right, I think that's good enough. You can get started, do the front view. If you want to go for the side view, go for it, right? We're going to do all three views at some point, but just get that front view. The arc is a little tricky on top. I would use a circle and then trim it off, right? So that means you're going to need the center point of the circle before you go for that arc. Just use construction lines to get that center point. Questions? Huh? I just randomized it. Yeah. So now that I have a portion of this done, I kind of have perspective on how this is going to look. That might be too far. I don't know. But it's, AutoCAD, move command, grab it. I am moving around anywhere I want to. So that's the great thing about a software is put it anywhere for now. We can always move it to where we want it later. But if I pop into layout, I start to get a feel for what it's going to look like on a piece of paper. I'm just dragging the viewport out because I want to use as much paper as I can. Right. So here's kind of how it's going to look on the paper, and I can move it around and position it. So maybe that's a little too far apart. I might not need that much room for dimensioning. But again, in AutoCAD, you can move things around so easy. Just don't worry about it. Just make it comfortably far enough away. right. I think that's good. Go for it. You have a couple to do, one that's on Blackboard and this one that I've handed out.